Find ourselves this morning in Akwesasne with one of the most dynamic cousins I have. And I've also promised him I'd throw this crap away, so don't worry about even seeing it because you're not going to see it.
And I
But
believe that.
he has remembered a story about his dad, my Uncle Donald, his dad, and the Corvette. Ditto?
Well, my dad was a serviceman, started out in the Army, joined at 17 and went in the Army, and I grew up most of my life until I was about 14 or 15, basically without him. He was always gone. Did many tours overseas. The most proud part, he did the stint in the CIA, and I've always heard stories about him being off in the war and doing this and fighting for us, and it was always good stories I heard about him, but he was never there. I mean, most of my father figures were older cousins, uncles. They were my dad growing up, and I didn't hold him against it because he was never there for the majority of my life, about 14 years. Very proud of him, but never knew him. Sometimes feared him. And he finally retired after Vietnam, his second stint in Vietnam, and I was still kind of distant from him. I loved him. I thought he was a great guy. Heard lots of stories from him, but just distance, just a stranger. Of course, being part of 7 kids, you're just one of the pack, one of the youngest. And I had a cousin, Louis, who ran into a great deal down in New York City with this old Corvette. My dad was a Corvette lover. And so we got it up north, and it just so happens I wasn't doing much that time, and we started working on this Corvette, which is the very first time after about 14 years of my life where I actually started doing this project with my dad, talking and planning and working, and him teaching me, and it was really cool. It was just mind-opening. It's like all these stories I heard about him and all his history of what I knew about him is now with me. It's like being in the presence of a celebrity, I guess, and he's spending time with me. I'm not part of a 7-member family anymore, just another kid. It's him and me together alone. And his jokes and his stories and him teaching me about the vet. And we spent a lot of time, a lot of Saturdays, excuse me, working on that vet. And that was the best time. The hardest I worked, the better it got, and we just had a really good time. And I really bonded with him for the very first time. And I really liked him. I didn't fear him as much. He wasn't a stranger. I fell in love with him. True love, other than, he's your dad, you love him and respect him. A lot of respect. And the best time we had together, it was Beverly from Alexandria Bay, who was there last night, and we decided to take this vet on a road trip because we fixed it up, painted it. After about 1.5 years of working on this thing, it was done. We go on this road trip, just him and I, and this 2-seater Corvettes, 1962 Corvette. Boom! Had to get on the highway, see what it does. End up in Alexandria Bay, which I don't know how we ended up there, but we ended up at Buck's parents' house. And long story short, he ended up drinking all night, with his mom, at the kitchen table, just bullshitting, telling tales and drinking beer. And of course, they had a daughter that was just about 2 years younger than myself, very good looking, hot, of course, when you're 16, any girl's pretty much hot. And so we spent that night, on the couch and just making out, having a good time. My dad had a good time. I had a great time with this little new girlfriend I found, just making out and just playing, around on the couch. And to the wee hours. We finally left there about 6:30, cooked us breakfast, had to head home because, of course, we knew people were going to be mad at us, and where were we? And just having a good time, just us guys. Of course, I thought I was, one of the guys by then, and just cruising back, doing what the Corvette does, seeing him take that Corvette right up to 120 miles an hour. Boom! And just on the edge, on the edge the whole trip. And he was always cool. I felt safe. I knew going 120 miles down the highway after he's been partying all night. It was kind of a dangerous thing to do, but I still felt safe, and I knew he wouldn't do anything to jeopardize my safety. And that was one of the best times. That's when I fell in love with my dad, and that's when I got to know him as a person, not as a story or who he is.
You didn't tell us the color of the Corvette.
Oh, black as a crow's ass. It was black. And
That's a split window or single window?
that was a single window, split seats, 1962. And of course, soon as he left town on a golf, of course I had my secret key made. And I had to go through the whole car before I could take it. Of course, I had to take the Corvette out myself when he's gone. And it was funny because it took me about an hour and a half to go through the Corvette, to jot down the mileage, to check everything. And he even put, there was the straw we had in the doghouse. He even put pieces of straw, one on the tire and one behind the tire and one on the side of the tire. So he'll know, because he taught me how to do the odometer. And how to set it back, because when he sells it, he wanted to sell it with the lower odometer reading. So he knew I knew that trick. And I knew from his stories of the CIA, and I knew he was full of tricks. And I finally found those 4 pieces of straw. And he'd go by that. If it wasn't in an exact place, he knew I would have got into that Corvette. And it was like, aha! So I moved them, marked them, did everything I can. Of course, took out the Corvette and just drove it around. Pride. Of course, when you're driving around in this nice car, you want the world to see you. Of course, out in Bombay, New York, the only thing that saw me that was alive was cows. And I remember I had to go bale hay that day, and of course, I drive up in old Don's farm to bale hay that day, drive up in a fully restored 1962 Corvette, showroom condition. He looked at me, he says, "Damn, how much am I paying you?" And so I got back and I marked off where the vet was, from how far it was from the left wall, how far back it was from the back of the garage. I got as close as I can, and even wrote down each piece of that straw that he put around the wheels, wrote all that down. Good to go. And replaced the gas, did the odometer, did everything. Even wiped my fingerprints off the damn thing. And of course he got back, and I knew he checked it out and everything was good. But it was funny, he just had to give me that look in the eye and ask me that one question. I knew I was good to go, but I could not. It was like he just gave me that one look in the eye and just asked me that simple question. And I had to tell him the truth. Yeah, I took it out and I had a great time. But it was, of course, I thought he'd be mad and pissed, but he was very gracious and he was good. He was proud of me that I did tell the truth, and I did find, he was kind of upset about that I found one of his tricks. I'm sure he had another one he never told me about. But that was it. That was the best story. One of my best stories is falling in love with my dad.
Boy, it's a shame that the world's going to really miss this, because I promised you I'd throw this crap away. But I appreciate it. You're a great storyteller.
I wouldn't call it storytelling.
Thank you.
All right.